Air Canada is apologizing to a BC man who uses a wheelchair, a man who was forced to drag himself off a flight. The airline now admits it violated disability regulations, but the passenger wants more than an admission. He wants his experience to spark real change. Albert Delatalla with us this morning, and he has the details on a story really that got worldwide attention. Albert.
Yeah, it really did, Heather. And the couple at the center of this, they're calling the outcome a victory, and they're hoping to see change here. But by the airline's own admission, they had to go through a lot to get here. Here's the background. Prince George, BC residents Rodney and Deanna Hodgins, they were flying to Las Vegas from Vancouver in late August when a crew member told Rodney, who uses a wheelchair, that he had to get to the front of the plane without any assistance. The 50-year-old has cerebral palsy and normally exits planes with the help of an aisle chair. That's a more narrow version of a wheelchair. Here's more from him on how that went.
I hauled myself over the seats. I was grabbing onto the seats. She was on the floor moving my legs. Then I got to the end and I couldn't go anymore because there was nothing for me to hang on to. My legs are in pain. I told my wife to get in front of me. And I grabbed onto her shoulders and I was hanging there. And then I told the man with the aisle chair, I said, "You've got to get in behind me because I'm going to fall."
That incident sparked international outrage, as you mentioned, Heather, and condemnations from MPs in the House of Commons. Fast forward to this week, Air Canada apologized to the couple by email. It wrote, "We have to regrettably admit that Air Canada was in violation of the disability regulations." It offered them flight credits worth $1,000 each. But Hodgins is hoping the airline will instead use that money to ensure people with disabilities can more easily travel on their planes. And the Canadian Transportation Agency, they are investigating the incident.
This is not the only incident that's now coming to light, Albert, from recent weeks, with Air Canada at the center of it and the company's treatment of people who use wheelchairs. Tell us more.
Yeah, it isn't. And CBC News actually just recently heard from another man who uses a wheelchair, and he says he was dropped and injured while trying to exit an Air Canada flight. Ryan LaChance is a stand-up comedian. You can see him there. He has cerebral palsy and uses a motorized wheelchair. Back in May, the 44-year-old traveled from his home in White Rock, BC to Nova Scotia, where he was performing at the Halifax Comedy Festival. It was at the return flight to Vancouver that this incident happened. He says that Air Canada ground crew insisted on transferring him without the assistance of an Eagle lift that he uses. Despite his personal assistant, his care assistant who was with him, she was saying that he needed that lift. He eventually landed hard on the floor. Here's LaChance describing that experience.
He kept trying to lift me up and put me in the aisle chair. And I'm a big guy, and those aisle chairs aren't very big, so like my legs wouldn't fit on, and then my leg would get caught. It was just hurting my body, and I ended up bruising up my back and my hip really bad, and I was in bed for 2 or 3 days afterwards just to recover from it all.
LaChance filed a formal complaint with Air Canada. It said to CBC News in a statement, quote, "This customer did not receive the level of service we normally provide." Continuing, "We are in communication with him in order to resolve this matter to his satisfaction." Both of these stories follow another one directly from Canada's Chief Accessibility Officer, Stephanie Cadeau. She says airline users are failing, the airlines are failing to treat wheelchair users with respect, following incident involving her last month when Air Canada forgot to bring her wheelchair on a flight from Toronto to Vancouver. The airline got her chair to her the next day, but she stresses whenever someone's wheelchair is lost, so is their independence, safety, mobility, and dignity. She says airlines need to do better. Heather.
Far from an isolated incident. Thank you for bringing those all together, Albert. Albert Delatalla this morning in Toronto.